Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 23rd, 2018. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Steve, in the spirit of beating a dead horse, let's talk about the quarterbacks. Everybody wants to know about it, so let's talk about Ohio State's quarterback situation. Do you expect in the next couple of weeks or sooner, or really any time before Joe Burrow could transfer, before that deadline is, do you expect Urban Meyer will name a leader at the quarterback position, or do you think he's going to continue to say it's equal?
I think he's going to continue to say it's equal. Privately, he might say something to Joe Burrow, but it doesn't really do him any good to tip his hand publicly, I guess. I mean, there's nothing to really be gained from that. The semester at Ohio State is coming to an end. The exams will begin later this week, and I presume Joe will be graduating. I'm not sure when the commencement exercises are, if they're doing at the end of next week or sometime the following week. But at any rate, that day is coming, and when he has his degree in hand, that's when all of his options will be open, and schools can gain permission to contact him and vice versa. So I guess we're in a holding pattern right now for this week until that is all finalized and the paper trail is all complete with the compliance office. And at that point, he more than likely will start fielding offers, I would assume, from other colleges about opportunities to go and be the starting quarterback, or at least compete for the starting quarterback job somewhere else. So I guess we're as I say, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. But it's hard to really read the tea leaves. It sounds to me like, if all things are equal today, it's probably Dwayne Haskins' job. I think, first of all, he'll be a sophomore, whereas Joe would be a junior. So maybe they're looking at it. He would get 3 years potentially. Again, there's a lot that goes into this. If it's dead even, what do you do? And I've floated the idea that you play them both quite a bit in the first 2 games against Oregon State and Rutgers and determine this will be our guy going into the game against TCU. And, yet is Joe going to sit around and wait on that? So, I don't know, very complex situation, but hopefully within the next 3 weeks we might get some closure on whether or not Joe decides he's going to be back at Ohio State.
Yeah, and we're all focused on what's Joe thinking, what's Joe going to do. I want to talk about what Dwayne is thinking because – after the Cotton Bowl, we talked to Dwayne in the locker room, and he made it pretty clear. He wasn't brash about it, but in his typical quiet confidence mode, he was like, and he was asked, do you feel like this is your team now? It's not like he came out and said, this is my team. But he was asked multiple times by reporters, do you feel like now that JT Barrett, that era is over, this is your team? And he said, in no uncertain terms, yes, I do feel like that. And I feel like, if I'm Dwayne Haskins, I feel like I've earned this job. I was the number 2 quarterback last year, and you can say that was by default, but the way I played against Michigan and just everything people are saying about me, could be the best NFL prospect at quarterback for Ohio State since Art Schlichter. I mean, what's Dwayne thinking right now that they're kind of like going back and forth on this? I mean, I feel like Dwayne Haskins probably, I don't know if he's perturbed, but I'm sure he's a little agitated that he is not being told that he's the leader at this point.
You may have a very good point there. I think if you watch the spring game, he was good, but he was not great. And I think that the biggest thing for him to do is I saw a documentary with J.T. Barrett, and he was talking about some of the different things, the advice he had gotten, and particularly going into an NFL team. And it's like, look, put all that other stuff behind you and just put your head down and do what you have to do. Focus on your job, and everything will take care of itself. And I think that's what Dwayne probably should be immersing himself in, and it sounds like that's what he has been. Sounds to me like he has been living at the Woody Hayes Center, from what everybody else says, for one, to immerse himself in the game of football, but two, to also show the coaches his commitment and his desire to be that starting quarterback. So perhaps that is his way of showing the coaches that, hey, I am serious about this. I am not just a fly-by-night here. I want to be the guy. And so I think, to me, that's the right attitude to approach it with, is that, hey, I haven't won anything yet. I need to continue to work as hard as I possibly can. And my best, if it's good enough, it should be good enough for me to win this job. I think it's kind of telling that as the season wore on last year, they never did switch those roles, and that in the biggest game of the year at Michigan, it was Haskins that got the nod to come in there. You would have thought that Burrow would have been healthy by that time and given that chance just because he had major game experience the year before, whereas Haskins had only been kind of in for mop-up action, and yet they went with Haskins, and he did a great job, and I think that is what is maybe the most telling evidence, I guess, at this point. I mean, Burrow's never played in a live game with all the chips in the middle of the table like that. Usually he's in with the year before with a huge lead or whatever it may have been. So I think that is something that factors for Haskins, and I think you make a good point. His psyche is important in this, but he seems like he's on top of what he wants to do and has got a plan to get there.
What do you think Tate Martell is thinking? He's a talented kid. I mean, this is one of the top quarterback recruits in the nation from all accounts. He's been really good in practice. Everybody's looking at that spring game, looking at his completion percentage. Yeah, what if they were going live in the spring game? He actually had to be tackled. I'm sure he would have put up some really nice stats in that game. He didn't come here to be a third-string quarterback, and maybe he's thinking one of these guys is going to transfer, and at the very least I'll be the backup. What do you think Tate Martell is thinking right now, Steve?
Well, that's interesting. He redshirted, so he's got 4 years of eligibility left. I suppose he may stick this through this year and see how it goes, and then he would have, possibly a transfer year and 2 years left if he were to leave. That's a lot of stuff to think about. I think one day he could be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. I think he's got tremendous ability. I don't think he played particularly well in the spring game in terms of throwing the football. I think running the ball, somebody made a comment that had it been live, he would have rushed for about 150 yards. So, that's pretty impressive for him to be able to do that. And he may be the prototype guy that they want to run the zone read. I don't know. But, I just think that he loves where he's at. I think that they're bringing him along as best as they can. And they have not dismissed the idea of putting a Tate Martell package in, say you get inside the 10-yard line and, for lack of a better term, you put him into the Wildcat and let him have those run-pass options and see what develops. I think if they're able to get him into a game in those first couple of games or before things really, really get serious in the Big Ten, then I think that can only help the cause. And I think you're right. If Burrow leaves, I can't imagine that Martell would also leave because he'd be one play away from playing quite a bit at the quarterback position at Ohio State. And I think even, as I say, I think there may be a package in mind for him of plays that if they're having some red zone issues, you just shove that kid in there and put the ball in the end zone. So, because that's what he's shown to me in the times that I've seen him, limited amount, he's got that ability. So, I think he sticks it out at least this year and sees where things are headed. And, there could be plan in place. But, again, anything beyond this calendar year, it's kind of hard to really make a definitive statement about who's going to be where and who's going to do what. And things can turn and change on a dime, as we've seen, with the Miller injury and then the Barrett injury, and things happen. So, I guess just keep an open mind in whatever direction it is. I was talking with my father-in-law who knows football through and through. He played at Ohio University back in the 60s, and he's got a good grip on what's going on with football. And the point that we kind of came to is the coaches are going to do what they think is best for the entire group of 100 guys in the program, in the school. And whatever else happens, I mean, you just have to let the chips fall where they may. And I think, you go back to 2015. Did that turn out the way? Did they win the national championship? Did they win every game like everybody thought they should have? No, they did not. And so the coaches bore the brunt of the blame, but they did everything they thought was the right thing to do. And so when this doesn't go right, whatever day that might be, if and when they do lose a game this year, they're going to get crucified because they didn't play the other guy, they ran off the other guy, whatever it is. So they can't win one way or the other with this, and, with the culture that we live in today. So my feeling is just take it with a grain of salt, and let's just see where it goes.
My last thing for you on our quarterback themed version of the Bucknuts Morning Five today, and you touched on this a little bit, Steve. I mean, what are the chances, in your estimation, that all three of these quarterbacks, pretty much meaning just Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins, I don't think there's any chance that Tate Martell's leaving. In your estimation, what are the chances that Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins both are on this roster in 2018? They buy into the idea it's an open competition. Put some odds on that for me. What do you think that's more likely than not, or do you think that's probably maybe a dark horse option?
Well, I'm going to call it 50-50, and here's why. Because, first of all, I know that Joe Burrow loves Ohio State. He's going to have his degree, and he's never really fulfilled all the goals that he set when he got to Ohio State. I think the one thing that's missing is being the starting quarterback and leading this team to some sort of championship, national championship, Big Ten, whatever it might be. Those were the things he came to Ohio State to accomplish. That's why he passed up other places to come and play at Ohio State, even though they had established guys like Barrett and Cardale Jones, et cetera, in the fold. So, I look at it and I just say that I think it's going to be an awfully difficult thing for him to walk away from Ohio State. I mean, you look at Nebraska, the perceived place he's supposed to be going. They had two pretty good quarterbacks playing in their spring game on Saturday. So you're telling me that Scott Frost, the head coach there, is going to make some kind of promise to Joe Burrow, although Burrow was outstanding in Ohio State's spring game, that he's going to come in and be the starting quarterback. Short of that type of a promise, you're really in no better a situation than you are if you're at Ohio State. So other than how good Dwayne Haskins is, and what the coaches are thinking, at least privately. So I'm going to call it 50-50. He's got 2 years left. Let's not forget that he could stick this year out at Ohio State, and then on January the 9th, the day after they win the national championship or whatever, he could enroll somewhere else and move on with his life if that's how it turns out. So, and have 1 year to be the starter someplace else with a full year run-up going into it. So I'm saying 50-50. I think there is a good chance he will be back and will stay at Ohio State for this year and stick it out, see where it goes, and then exercise his option the following year.
Great wisdom, as always, from the man, Steve Helwagen. Thank you very much, Wagen, and thank you to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.